Hey everyone, it's the Doom Dog. What happens when you mix PlayStation 2 era God of War with The Legend of Zelda? You get the subject of today's video. Today we are taking a look at Darksiders. In this video we are taking a look at the PlayStation 3 version of the game, but it has also been released on the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4, the Switch, and for PC. This combination is certainly odd, but is it any good? Let's take a look. Darksiders was not a major AAA release from a big studio. It was the very first project from a brand new smaller studio called Vigil Games. The group of guys developing it had never developed a console game before, and they had to shop around their concept to numerous publishers to be able to make it in the first place. The project ultimately got picked up by THQ, who was known for making licensed games at the time, but they were looking at moving away from that. It is not often that a game goes from idea to final product being what the developers want without major compromises, but that does seem to be what happened here. A talented group of inexperienced developers got to do what they wanted with this game, and it came out the other side what they were wanting it to be. That is admirable in and of itself. That is not to say that there were no problems with the development of the game. There certainly were. There was a lot of writing and rewriting and numerous changes to the story as well as pretty bad crunch for the last year of development in order to finish the game and get it out on store shelves. The team seems to look back on it with pride at what they accomplished, however, so there does not seem to be a ton of regret. Darksiders was a fairly simple concept. Make a game about one of the horsemen of the apocalypse and make the gameplay a mix of PlayStation 2 era God of War and the Legend of Zelda series. They accomplished this with the fast-paced, combo-driven combat and brutality of God of War and the dungeons full of big puzzles to solve like Zelda. While the game may not be anything original, it is a massive undertaking from a brand new studio full of inexperienced developers. Derivative does not have to mean bad. When the team was developing the concept, the characters, and ideas, they made the decision that while they would borrow heavily from the Bible and other religious texts to create the world, they didn't want to just lift from it. They wanted to use it as a basis to develop the world, and they described it as an apocalypse as it might have happened in a comic book. With this, they made the brilliant decision to bring on Uncanny X-Men artist Joe Moderia. I hope I pronounced that right. This lent the game a very comic booky look and feel to its art design, and it helps it stand out more where the gameplay might not have. Darksiders is certainly a cool idea, and it was pretty well reviewed at the time, but it was released in 2010. 12 years is a long time. The question now is, how well does it hold up? Is it still the fun blend of Zelda and God of War that it was praised as, or has it not aged all that well as other games, including God of Wars and Zeldas, have come out since then? Join me as we look at Darksiders for the PlayStation 3 and see how it holds up. Darksiders borrows heavily from the Bible and other religious texts such as apocryphal works like the Book of Enoch. This video will contain some discussion of the concepts and whatnot that the game does bring up. It is not going to be a deep dive into these things because we would be here forever, but I will be talking about what they are on a surface level. It was my original plan to compare this to what was written in the Book of Revelations, but that video already exists. There is a link to it below. It is not my goal to be preachy, it is merely to inform. In the world of Darksiders, the armies of heaven and hell have been at war with each other since the dawn of time. There is a group called the Charred Council that keep order and balance between the two sides, and the horsemen of the apocalypse are the enforcers. Both halves of the war respect the council. There eventually arrived a third kingdom, the kingdom of man. Since mankind was in its infancy, a pact was formed that neither side would interfere with mankind until they were ready. This was sealed with the 7 seals, only to be broken for the end war, which will determine the ultimate fate of the 3 kingdoms. In the Bible, the 7 seals are the 7 judgments from God that signal the end times. After all 7 seals have been opened, Christ returns in what is called the second coming, and the apocalypse takes place. And then I saw in the right hand of him who sat on the throne a scroll with writing on both sides and sealed with the 7 seals. Revelations 5:1. As the game begins, the armies of heaven and hell come down to earth, starting the apocalypse. War, one of the horsemen comes down after it has already started. You get the first hint that something is not as it should be when angels approach War and seem shocked that he is here. He is forced out of his more powerful ultimate form, and he does not know why. As the angels and demons battle each other in the streets, War makes his way through the chaos when he is spotted by Abaddon. The word Abaddon translates to destroyer, and if you knew this ahead of time, you probably figured out one of the game's biggest plot twists. Abaddon is king of an army of locusts that will bite and sting non-believers during the end times. They had a king over them, the angels of the abyss, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon and in Greek is Apollyon. Revelations 9:11. Or ask where the other horsemen are, but he gets attacked before he can get an answer. A female angel named Uriel intervenes. It seems that the 7th seal was not broken, or should not be here. He has arrived early. Abaddon gets grabbed by a massive demon named Straga, and Uriel wants to know why War is here. War insists that he answered the call, and you must fight Straga. Uriel is not actually in the Bible proper. Instead, the name is taken from apocryphal texts such as the Book of Enoch. In those, the angel is male, not female. There is a reason that Uriel was changed from male to female, and it will make sense later on. He is one of the archangels. He is the angel of repentance, and he stands at the gates of Eden with a fiery sword. As War is about to deal a major blow to Straga, a horn blows and leaves him powerless on the ground. Straga grabs him and squashes him in his hand, and the screen fades to black. What is this horn, and why is it not explained? War wakes up sometime later in front of the Charred Council. The Destroyer went to Earth just like War did. War insists that the 7th seal was broken, and he was summoned, but the seal was not broken. The other horsemen did not descend to Earth. War stands accused of helping the Dark Ones wipe out humanity, which threw off the balance. The treaty is broken. War points out that the armies of both heaven and hell were already on Earth and were fighting in the streets when he arrived. He fought against the demons, but ultimately was defeated. Abaddon seemed to know something, but he fell as well. The council insists War be punished, and War says that his allegiance still lies with the council. He wants to be sent back to Earth to prove his innocence and to punish the guilty parties. If he fails, the council's sentence will have been carried out. The council agrees to War's terms and they decide to send him back. They will not send him back alone, though. They send a being called a Watcher with him to keep an eye on him for the council. The council binds the Watcher to War, so they are now inseparable. Where War goes, so goes the Watcher. War picks up his sword, and the council tells him to seek out the demon Vulgrim, who has fallen out of favor with the Destroyer and wishes an audience with the council. The council then sends War back to Earth. The Watcher lets War know that he is in complete control and War needs to obey him. The Watchers are only mentioned once in the Bible in the book of Daniel. I saw in a vision of my mind as I lay in bed, and behold, a Watcher, a Holy One, came down from the heavens. Daniel 4:13. The book of Enoch does mention them as well, and it does go into more detail about them. They are angels sent down to earth to watch over humanity. War gets his first glimpse of the post-apocalypse world, and it lies in ruins. He asks how long he has been gone, and he is informed that it has been about a century. Humanity is gone. War finds Vulgrim, and the demon wants souls. He informs War that the Destroyer is in a massive tower off in the distance, but it is inaccessible right now. He only speaks more after gathering more souls. Return to him, and he says that the gate in front of you is a living creature. He gives you a horn to wake the creature and tells you to seek out another demon called Samael. Samael's power rivals that of the Dark Prince himself. I do not know what this creature acting as a barrier is, and their presence in this game is not well explained. Seriously, what are these guys? Use the horn at the gate and the giant stone creature wakes up. He says he is free, he says he is bound to the Destroyer, but he considers the Destroyer an enemy. Upon finding out that you seek out the Destroyer as well, he lets you pass. Again, I do not know who these guys are. Why are they bound to the Destroyer? What is their deal? I have no clue, and the game really does not provide us with an answer. This would be more frustrating if it wasn't such a minor part of the game as a whole. War finds some demon stomping around Samael's prison, and he claims War killed his men. He calls the horseman weak and mentions that the Destroyer is expecting him. You have to fight him. This is another plot point that doesn't seem to go anywhere. I do not know who this is. The game acts like he is important, but after you beat him, he is never brought up again. What is he doing here? What were his men? When did War kill his men? How do the two know each other? I get the feeling that this plot might have been cut. Anyway, solve a simple puzzle and release Samael from his prison. He cannot leave the general area, at least for now, but he does lay out the task at hand before War. The Destroyer is out of your reach, and you need to find a way to reach him. His spire is protected by 4 guardians. Find them and kill them. Take their hearts and bring them back to Samael. He will help you. The first of the 4 is the Bat Queen Tiamat. Get her heart and come back here. He gives you wings to help you glide longer distances when you jump. Samael is often referred to as the Angel of Death. He is sometimes considered a fallen angel. This may not be the case, however, because it is his job to kill sinners. He is not necessarily evil as such. Obviously, the game goes with the idea of him being a fallen angel, or a demon, if you will. War uses the horn on a second stone creature. The giant claims that he is cursed, and War needs to break that curse before the giant can move from the spot. The demons are in the Shadow Realm. Since War does not have access to the Shadow Realm, the giant grants him access to it. Who cursed the giant and for what purpose? Again, we are not given explanation. These fights in the Shadow Realm serve as a way of teaching you the game's mechanics. I will talk more about this later. After winning these fights, head back to the giant. He thanks you and moves aside. Uriel shows up with a group of angels who are hunting for something. I do not know if they are looking for War or what, but he takes one of their griffins and flies off towards Tiamat's lair. The angels give chase. A giant bat creature flies in and takes the griffin out. War plummets back down to the ground right in front of the Twilight Cathedral that he was trying to reach. War makes his way to the top of the tower to confront Tiamat, who accuses him of being nothing but an assassin for Samael. She thinks Samael bought his loyalty and she wants to make a deal with War. War is not interested and refuses to even listen to the offer. She attacks and War must kill her. He goes in for the finishing blow and rips one of her wings off. She pleads with War, but he rips her heart out with time to return to Samael. Volgrim asks how you will escape without the griffin, and he says that he knows a way if War will just let him see the heart. War does, and he holds up his end of the bargain, showing War the serpent holds shortcuts through another realm to move quickly from one place to the next. This is the game's form of fast travel. Tiamat does not come from Christianity. She is a goddess from the Mesopotamia area. She is the goddess of the sea and is married to Abzu. She symbolizes chaos and creation, and she comes from the Sumerian mythology. While various Christian works are this game's primary source of inspiration for its story and world, they are not the only religious mythos that it borrows from, as is seen here. War returns to Samael, who takes the heart and tells War about his next target, the Griever. She is in the subway tunnels under the ruins of the city. Before War can reach her lair, however, he must pay a visit to Ulthane. The Watcher is holding back some of War's power, and Samael shows him how to access it again. He has him concentrate and focus his anger and release it. This grants War the ability to use his ultimate form from the beginning of the game once again, though for a short time. War finds a third giant stone creature in his way, and he is also cursed just like the last one. Once again, you need to break the curse before he is able to move out of the way. You guessed it, this is not explained yet again, and this part of the game exists to teach you more of the game's mechanics. I will talk more about this when we reach the gameplay section. After you finish the challenges, return to the stone giant, and he will move aside, allowing you to pass through. War comes across a large hammer in the ground and tries to lift it when Ulthane shows up and tells him to leave it alone. He does not know who War is. War figures out that the black hammer is not the actual hammer. It is Ulthane himself. The two challenge each other to a fight, but angels show up and interrupt the two. Uriel is with them. She believes War is guilty. The angels attack him. Ulthane picks up his hammer and challenges War to a contest to see who can take out more angels. After the contest, which is not that difficult to win, Uriel confronts War. She blames him for Abaddon's death, and you must fight her. After you win the fight, she flies off. After seeing this display of strength, Ulthane thinks that War might be who he says he is. If War kills Griever, Ulthane will believe him. As soon as you reach Griever's lair, she attacks. Fend her off. Deep in the lair, you find a gauntlet that you can use to break large blocks of ice and can be used as a weapon. War reaches Griever. Note that unlike Tiamat, Griever does not speak, which indicates she may be more of an animalistic demon, lacking the intelligence of the previous ones that War has encountered. After War wins, he beats the shit out of her. This is one of the more brutal deaths in the game. He takes her heart, and it is time to return to Samael. We encounter Ulthane again on the way back. Ulthane made him a pistol, and he now believes War wants some answers from Ulthane, and Ulthane refuses. Samael knows that you did not kill Ulthane, and he's not pleased about it. War asks Samael about Uriel. The Hellguard are very loyal to her. Samael says that her relationship with Abaddon may go beyond being professional. Uriel is determined to punish the one who killed Abaddon, and she believes that to be War. War says he fought the demon that did kill Abaddon, and Samael knows that it was Straga. War's next target is the Stygian, the king of the Ashlands. It is a massive, dead desert. The Stygian is a giant worm, and the worms thrive on the dead sands of the Ashlands. There's a group of demons working for the Destroyer that have taken to attempting to capture the worms in the desert and have set up an arena for various creatures to fight to the death. They escape the worms when crossing the sands because they have the ability to briefly slow down time, giving them time needed to run through them. Samael gives War the ability to do the same. War eventually finds himself in that arena. He fights a demon on a horse. A few rounds later, a demon riding War's horse named Ruin enters, and War has to fight the demon to get his horse back. Ruin is black, not red. Come on, game! How the fuck did you get this wrong? Earlier in the game, War was talking to Samael, and Samael said that he rode a red horse, which is correct. How the hell did you go from getting it right back then to getting it wrong when his horse finally shows up? Seriously, what the fuck? After War wins against the demon, his horse attacks him. The Watcher orders War to kill the horse, and War refuses, telling Ruin that he will not fight him. The horse does calm down, and War climbs up on Ruin. Now you can fight the rest of this area with Ruin, giving you a chance to learn to use him. Afterwards, ride out to confront the Stygian. The Stygian is chained up by a group of demons, and he breaks free, allowing War to fight it. While there is no worm in the Bible called the Stygian, there may be an inspiration for it. There is a large worm creature called a Shamir that can cut through stone, iron, and diamond. It is mentioned in a part of the Talmud called the Gemara. King Solomon is said to have used one to build the first temple of Jerusalem. I do not know that this is definitely the inspiration, but given that Vigil has taken from the Bible and other works such as the Book of Enoch, it would not surprise me. War charges the worm and jumps into its maw. He kills the thing from the inside and emerges with the heart in his hand. Like Griever, the Stygian is another demon that cannot speak. It is time to return to Samael. There is one more chosen left, and her name is Silitha, called the Broodmother. She is a spider demon that feeds on most who enter her lair. She feeds the rest to her children. War asks Samael if Silitha will have any stories of him, and he says not to ask such questions. War comes to a large cliff, and spiders descend down and grab him. He winds up in Silitha's lair, break free of the web. In her lair, War finds the abyssal chain. This is the hookshot. Of course there is a hookshot. The Zelda inspiration is strong with this one. War eventually finds Silitha. and she says that he honors her with his presence. She knows that you killed 3 of the Chosen, and she says that it is not their job to guard the tower. It is their job to ensure that Samael does not escape from his prison. She claims that he represents a bigger threat than all 4 of them combined. War is not here to talk, fight her. This is an interesting twist, but you must ask yourself if you are being told the truth here. Silitha is a demon. We know they are not known to be trustworthy types, and she has reason to lie to you. She does not want to die, as is evidenced by her screaming, "You will never take my heart." She is afraid of war. Then again, Samael is also a demon. Can he be trusted? Either this makes you think, and I like it. As War goes in for the killing blow, the floor beneath them gives way, and they fall below. Silitha gets impaled on a spike on the floor, and War takes her heart. It is time to head back to Samael. Again, he confronts Samael about what Silitha said. Samael says it does not matter, and that he will hold up his end of their agreement. He believes War is on a quest for revenge, and he respects revenge. Samael does not like the company the Destroyer keeps, and you will know what he means by that soon enough. He opens up a portal for War. The Watcher does not trust Samael. Samael says that they will meet again as War enters the portal. War comes across Azrael, who confirms that the 7th seal was not broken. Azrael wants his help. He says that the gate needs to be shut and the Well of Souls needs to be cut off. The Destroyer draws power from the Well of Souls. It is Azrael's job to watch over the well so no souls enter or leave without him knowing. Azrael fought Straga and he lost. He promises to take War to Straga, but you need to find a way to free Azrael first. Azrael is the angel of death. It is his job to deliver souls to the afterlife. You know how we typically depict the Grim Reaper as delivering souls to the afterlife? That's basically what he is. The Well of Souls is an actual physical place. It is a cave inside the foundation stone under the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. War finds the Voidwalker. I will talk more about this later on, but it is a portal gun. Yes, this Zelda-esque game does have a portal gun. Azrael is surprised that War will be the one to set him free. He encourages War to hurry up before Straga finds out that he is coming. War wonders about Azrael saying that the 7th seal is not broken, as he remembers Abaddon saying the same thing before he died. Azrael says that the universe is sick, and he tried to talk to the Charred Council, but they did not listen. He felt he needed to act. Abaddon says that the forces of heaven should attack the forces of hell, openly violating the treaty. Abaddon claims to know better than the Creator. Yeah, somehow I doubt that. When the seals are broken, Hell's Chosen will meet to declare battle rights. Abaddon wants to strike that meeting and take out the leaders of Hell in a swift move, bringing a quick end to the war. When inquired about this, it will be their word against the Prince of Lies. Do you mean Satan? People will believe that Hell started this and that they will get away with it. Ulthane is there. He gives a sword to Abaddon, who uses it to break 6 of the 7 seals. Abaddon personally protects the 7th seal. They had no intention of involving the Horsemen in this, but War has to pay the price for their breaking the treaty. The Watcher demands War make Azrael pay, but War says his innocence is proven and he is done. The Watcher says otherwise and that the Destroyer needs to be dealt with. The Watcher says Azrael will live for as long as he is useful. War winds up freeing Azrael from his prison. The Watcher says that they are done with Azrael, but Azrael says that they will never escape the tower without his help. If you kill Straga, the whole place will come down because it is tied to his life. You need Azrael to escape. War finally comes face to face with Straga, who you fought at the start of the game. He remembers you, but he says that you are stronger than he remembers. He is the strongest of the chosen. War says the destroyer chose poorly. Fight Straga again. War goes in for the final blow and uses the Void Walker to wind up inside him. He slices Straga up from the inside, and the tower starts to fall apart around them. With Straga's death, Azrael uses the Well of Souls to teleport the two of you out of the tower. Apparently, Abaddon didn't actually die because he came to Azrael after his death, and the two of them went to the Garden of Eden. After Adam and Eve were cast out, Eden was hidden away, the Tree of Knowledge is still there, and Azrael tells War to go and eat from it. Abaddon also visited the tree, but Azrael does not know what happened to him after that. War approaches the bridge, but the path before him is destroyed. Azrael says that he has fought the darkness for so long that it has tainted him. War needs to conquer it before he is capable of seeing the bridge. War has to fight a shadow version of himself, another thing that they took from the Zelda series. War wins. Azrael gives War the Mask of Shadows, which allows him to see in the Shadow Realm. With this, he can cross the bridge. The Watcher says he will not let War go alone. Azrael says that the Watcher can try to cross Eden, but he will not come back alive. The Watcher decides better of it, but he tells War to hurry up. War approaches the tree. He sees a vision that shows that Uriel had been corrupted and betrayed Abaddon by telling the forces of hell about the plans. She offers him a choice: either take up the mantle of the destroyer or be cast out of heaven for violating the treaty and be dragged in chains before the council. He chose to become the destroyer. Uriel sends him to Azrael. The council knew what Abaddon did, but did not know who helped him. They summoned War to root out those involved in the plot. War sees him facing off against the destroyer, and a vision of him being stabbed as well. He wakes up in front of the tree, returned to Azrael. War tells Azrael and the Watcher that Abaddon is the destroyer and he was betrayed. The only sword that can damage him is the sword that he saw in the vision. It is the Armageddon blade. It was used to break the 6 seals and was destroyed. The pieces were scattered all over the land, and War will need to gather them and have Ulthane reforge it. Abaddon has the 7th seal. Uriel is planning to attack him with the Hellguard, but she will fail. Azrael opens the gate, and you return to the world. Azrael tells War that he must seek out the pieces of the blade and seek out Ulthane to rebuild it. He knows that it will be War's job to come and kill him after all this is said and done, and he knows that he must pay for his sins. He will embrace it. Uriel finds War and challenges him to a death oath. War accepts and wins the fight. He decides to walk away and deal with her later. He tells her that Abaddon is the destroyer, and she seems to genuinely not know this. She flies away. Okay, game. Why the fuck does she not know that Abaddon is the destroyer? She was the one that gave him the choice to become the destroyer or be cast out of heaven. She should damn well know what he chose. Was it because she was corrupted at the time and she came to her senses later on? That is the only explanation that I can come up with. Otherwise, her not knowing makes literally no sense. And it is hard to miss this because this happened shortly after you visit Eden. What the hell? After gathering the pieces of the Armageddon blade, return to Ulthane. He uses them to rebuild the blade, and it is time to fight the destroyer. Uriel is currently attacking him with the Hellguard, so return to Azrael. Azrael sends War up to fight the destroyer, where Uriel appears to be dead, the Destroyer no longer sees himself as Abaddon. He says no one cares if War lives or dies, but they could team up and earn many victories together. That's right, we're going with the old villain cliche of join me even though you have no reason to. The Destroyer calls the Council corrupt. This seems pretty easy to believe given that they used War to root out all those involved in Abaddon's plan. Speaking of which, why didn't they just ask War? Surely he would have agreed to find out the truth, right? Anyway, the Destroyer says that the Creator abandoned the angels because he totally seems like a trustworthy type who would never lie to War, right? War rejects his offer. Fight the Destroyer. War defeats the Destroyer. He says he is not killing him for duty. The Destroyer drops the 7th seal and War picks it up. It turns out that Uriel is not actually dead yet. The Council knew that War was too honorable just to play the Executioner, and he will kill everyone involved to clear his name. Uriel tries to intervene, but the Watcher slaps her aside. He picked up the 7th seal. Uriel picks up the Armageddon blade and stabs War, killing him and breaking the 7th seal. Because the breaking of the seal is meant to call the 4 horsemen, War comes back to life and he is free of the Watcher's control. War kills the Watcher. He chose not to kill Uriel because he did not want the last of Heaven's honor to die with her. Uriel says that all debts are repaid. War will be hunted down, and Uriel wonders if War will fight against all those who hunt him by himself. War says he is not alone, and we see the 3 other horsemen being called down to Earth. This is where the game ends. This game has a few problems with the plot, the most glaring of which is that Uriel is unaware that Abaddon is the Destroyer. By naming him this, it kind of gives away the twist to anyone that knows what the word means as well. I am also not 100% certain why War believes the 7th seal was broken. The game never clearly explains this. I guess that the Council tricked him into thinking it was broken because they wanted to use him to figure out who was involved in Abaddon's plot. But that is all it is, a guess. Having said that, I do like this game's plot. It borrows heavily from the Bible and multiple other religious texts to build its own world, and it gives them all its own twists, create a rather unique post-apocalypse story. Despite its derivative nature in design and gameplay, both, this really helps it stand out and feel more unique than maybe it should. Well, the story itself is pretty good, with some pretty decent plot twists and big reveals. What really stands out about this game is the world that it creates. There is a fair amount of world building in this title, and seeing the world before you and learning more about it winds up being one of the best parts of the game. It also served as an excellent building block for future entries in this series, which would expand on the game's universe quite a bit. I tend to remember this and how cool it all is more than the story itself. The story does have one fairly major sticking point, though, and that is that the characters really are not all that deep. They're not bad necessarily. They do have at least a baseline personality with a few character traits for you to latch on to, but if you are expecting a highly memorable character like Kratos or Midna, you are not going to get it here. Do not let that deter you from playing this game, however. Like I said, I do like this game's story, and despite its flaws. Every game has flaws, but not every game can overcome those with standout features. This one can. The world building and lore are both really cool in this game, and the game has some nice plot twists for those willing to give it a try. This is a good story that is worth experiencing. The story is pretty good, and the lore and world building are all very good, but how does it hold up graphically? Keep in mind that I am looking at the original release of the game for the PlayStation 3. The game is 12 years old at this point. That is a long time, but it holds up pretty well. This was a very good looking game when it was new, and it has held up well as the years have gone by. Being a 7th gen console game does mean that it displays the now rather low resolution of 720p, and it shoots for 30 FPS. Given that it was the 7th generation of consoles, the expected caveats are here. There are jaggies all over the place, and when you get up close to the game's graphics, you will notice many lower resolution textures. They do tend to blur a bit when you look at them up close. All of this is expected from a game from this generation, though, and it should come as no surprise that this is the case here. Having said that, this game was something of a looker in its day. The level of detail was relatively high, and the world was packed with all kinds of things for you to see and do. It presented you with a vibrant, semi-open world to explore, with decent variety of environments to fight and solve puzzles in. It was beautiful, and it still looks quite good, at least from a distance. As I mentioned, its age does show when you get up close. What really impresses me more than that technical proficiency on display is the art design. They brought in comic book artist Joe Madureira, I probably butchered that name again, to work on this game's art design, and it shows. This game has a very comic booky look and feel. There are a lot of cool designs for the angels and demons in War himself. The environment are also huge and gorgeously designed. I love exploring in this game. I love the look of it. This game presents a very different take on the post-apocalypse than something like Fallout, and I don't just mean in terms of story, where this takes inspiration from the biblical apocalypse, and that is nuclear. It is in the design and aesthetic too. This does not look like the typical brown, gray, and black color scheme that so many games of this generation did. This is a world of color. I love that as well. It still looks like a ruined world, but there is a lot of vibrant color to it. It's beautiful. Having said that, this game is definitely a far cry from perfect graphically, even by the standards of the consoles that it is on. This game has frame rate issues. As was common with this generation, they primarily seem to manifest in the forms of screen tearing, and there is a hell of a lot of it. There is enough that you can and will notice it, and it will become distracting at times. This does not seem to be the most well-optimized game in the world. Unfortunately, the good news is that the frame rate never flat out becomes unplayable. Overall, though, this game holds up quite well. There is a lot of gorgeous artwork in this world, and there is a fair amount of detail packed into the textures. There is a wide variety of environments to explore, and they are vibrant with lots of color. The art design is excellent. There is a lot of love in this game graphically, and this isn't even the best looking version of the game. We will talk more about that later on. The sound is another high point for this game. The first thing that you are bound to notice about this game is the excellent music. The game has 3 composers: Chris Velasco, Mike Reagan, and Scott Morton. Chris and Mike worked together on other projects such as Borderlands and God of War 1, 2, and 3. And I think it shows when you listen to the soundtrack. It does have flavors of God of War in it, and that explains further why the soundtrack is so great. This game has a big orchestral score complete with a choir that drives emotion very well. This game's score does an excellent job of instilling many of its locations with a sense of wonderment. It has an excellent sense of suspense when the game calls for it, and the atmosphere is great too. These guys have worked on quite a few projects over the years and put together numerous excellent soundtracks, and it shows here. They did great work. The voice acting is no slouch either, and this game has a great cast. Liam O'Brien plays War. He is a seasoned voice actor who has played many roles in many games and shows, including big releases such as Guild Wars 2, Middle-earth: Shadow of War, and Death Stranding. He lends an appropriate amount of anger to what you would expect out of a character called War. He is good in the role, so it is no surprise that he keeps finding work. Troy Baker plays Abaddon. In this game, he is like Nolan North in that if you have played a video game in the last decade or so, you probably know who he is. He was Batman in Arkham Origins. His biggest role was Joel in The Last of Us. He was in BioShock Infinite as well. He has been widely praised for his voice, and he always turns in a great performance. This game is no different. Phil Lamar, the voice of Vamp, plays the character Vulgrim, and he lends a certain sliminess to the character that works well to sell him as a sketchy merchant. The always awesome Vernon Wells plays Samael in this game as well. He played Bennett in Commando. He was also in The Road Warrior and Weird Science, among others. How the hell did this game amass such an excellent cast? The most standout performance in the game, and the most praised, is Mark Hamill playing the Watcher. He seems to give 100% in every single role he is given, and this game is no different. You can hear hints of the Joker in his performance, and it is better for it. He is amazing in this role, and he lifts the character up to be the most memorable character in the game. What an absolute stellar cast. It deserves nothing but praise. Unfortunately, there is one weak link in the game's audio, and it is the sound design. Well, it is weak by comparison to the rest of the game, at least. It is not that it is bad. There is plenty of environmental audio, and it all sounds fine. It does have some annoying things about it. It needs more variety in the combat noises. You will hear the same sword slashing sounds over and over again. It is not overly distracting or too annoying, but it is something that I definitely picked up on while I played the game. As a whole, the sound design for this game is excellent. The voice acting and voice cast are both top-notch. The music is excellent to the point where it is worth listening to outside of the context of the game, and the sound effects work pretty well even if they can get a little repetitive, especially in combat. This is mostly a great audio package. A game can look and sound as pretty as it wants, but it is all for naught if it does not play well. How does Darksiders play? Does it hold up? As I mentioned earlier, it is a combo of The Legend of Zelda and the PlayStation 2 era God of War, but what does that mean? Simply put, the combat plays like the combo system in Brutality, similar to God of War, while it has dungeons that take strong inspiration from The Legend of Zelda, with its items to find to help you out and numerous puzzles to solve. Let's start with the combat. Just like God of War, you press buttons in various patterns to perform different moves. Combine your different moves and different weapons to take down various combinations of enemies that the game puts you against. You can do a quick dash to dodge out of the range of enemies. You can also block enemy attacks and execute a counterattack if you get the timing right. Your main weapon in combat is the Chaos Eater. It is good for quick attacks and combos before you dash out of the way or block incoming attacks from your enemies. It is a great all-purpose weapon, and you will very likely spend the vast majority of the game using it. It tends to be War's best weapon. The others tend to be more situational, but this is to War what the Blades of Chaos are to Kratos. The second weapon that you are likely to acquire is the Crossblade. This is a longer distance weapon as it is thrown at enemies. You cannot really do combos with it because it doesn't really have a melee attack. But you can charge it up to spend longer dealing damage to the enemy. You can also highlight multiple enemies at a time so you can attack multiple targets in a row before it returns to you. This is great for flying enemies, and you can use it for puzzle solving as well. You can purchase Death's Scythe from Volgrim if you want. This is a good crowd control weapon if you find yourself surrounded by enemies. It is another melee weapon, and you can purchase new moves and combos for fighting enemies up close and personal. It is not as powerful as the Chaos Eater, but it does have a knockback effect that can send enemies to the ground and away from you. This is useful when you find yourself surrounded. The next weapon War can use is a giant glove that he can use to punch enemies. This has a stronger knockback effect when you use it, as it can send enemies flying. It does not affect all the enemies around you like the Scythe does. Because of the nature of the knockback effect, this can be difficult to actually kill enemies with. This is a weapon that I found myself using the absolute least. The final weapon you get is the handgun that Ulthane makes you. You can upgrade it to shoot faster, but it is a fairly low damage weapon. It is the longest range of your weapons, so it is useful against enemies that can move out of your range, such as enemies that can fly. Beyond that, you will probably use it to pepper enemies with minor damage while you try to stay out of range of their attacks. Despite its lower damage, I find myself using it quite a bit. In typical Zelda fashion, you explore dungeons to find new items, such as the Crossblade and the Twilight Cathedral. You solve puzzles to make your way through the dungeon. Figuring out how to progress further is the name of the game, just like it is in Zelda. Each dungeon has its own unique environment, and they all have plenty of puzzles for you to solve and dig deeper into. You get all the things you'd expect from these dungeons. Beholder keys are this game's version of keys that you can use to unlock doors. You get maps that show you the layout of the dungeon, and you get Horde Seekers that serve the same function as compasses in The Legend of Zelda. They show you where all the chests in the dungeon are. Each dungeon has a new item for you to acquire that can help you with the boss of that dungeon. If you've played basically any Zelda game, you will be right at home here. This game also has many bosses that you need to fight as well. There are less of them than there tend to be in Zelda games, but you will find yourself pitted against them at various points of the game. This is the Jailer boss. It is not a difficult boss to beat, but you do need to figure out how first. As you would expect, there is a bit of puzzle-solving elements to figuring out how to beat the bosses in this game. Not content with imitating Zelda in these ways, dungeons and the overworld have secrets that you can find in them as well. These secrets typically contain one of two items. The first is the life shard. When you collect 4 of these, your life will increase by 1 bar, just like the pieces of heart in Zelda. There are also wrath shards that increase his total wrath. Each wrath lets War use one of his wrath abilities. These are special abilities that you can use to perform if you have at least 1 wrath bar full. The most useful of these are this attack that causes blades to come out of the ground, but there are others as well. One thing that is nice about this game is that you do not need to use special items for War to stay underwater for as long as he wants. Instead, you can just swim below the surface of the water for as long as you want. You can engage in combat while in the water, but your moveset is very limited. To make up for this, enemies in the water tend to be simple and easy to kill. The only real danger that they present is if they attack you in groups. Once you get War's horse, you can use him to traverse the areas of the game, such as the Ashlands here. You can attack enemies from on the back of the horse, and the strength of your attacks is increased when you are on horseback. The horse also allows War to travel some large areas in the game more quickly, and he is required for a couple of boss fights as well. You can summon Ruin at will as long as you are in an area where you can ride on horseback. War will also find an item called the Abyssal Chain. You can use this in combat to pull yourself to enemies or pull enemies toward you, but its primary purpose is traversal. This is the game's version of the hook shot, and you can use it to pull yourself across gaps or swing from one point to another. You know how this works, and it is just as fun here as it is in Zelda. It is exactly what you expect it to be. The final item of this game is called the Voidwalker. It's a portal gun. I bet you didn't see this one coming. I was certainly surprised the first time I found out about this item. You shoot two portals, go in one end and come out the other end. You can charge the portals before you shoot them to launch yourself faster and further through the other end of the portal. You can also shoot a portal through another portal to place an end on another surface. This is used for some excellent puzzles that would make Valve proud, I am sure. It struck me as an odd inclusion, but it works. Weapons level up as you use them. You may want to switch back and forth between the sword, your scythe, and your gauntlet to work on them and level them up more. They become more and more powerful as you level them, and by extension, more useful. It is worth taking the time to level up the Chaos Eater at the very least. The scythe is not that difficult to level up either. The gauntlet is more of a problem. You only get 2 or 3 punches in before it sends enemies flying away from you. This is great if you want to create some distance between you and the enemies, but it makes it a pain in the ass to actually level up. You have to punch enemies to the ground, run up to them, and punch them again. You have to do this over and over again in order to kill enemies. This means that it takes a very long time to actually kill enemies with it and to level it up. Unlike the scythe and the sword, it is a royal pain in the ass to use and level up. You will be visiting Vulgrim a lot over the course of this game. When you do pay him a visit, you can purchase items and moves from him. As you defeat enemies, you will collect souls, and you can take these souls back to Vulgrim and you exchange them for items and moves. The more moves you get, the more you can do in combat. You can also get new moves for the gauntlet and the scythe as well. This does extend their use in combat. Having said that, the Chaos Eater is really the most powerful weapon. It overshadows the rest of the game in terms of what it can do, and you can buy one attack from Vulgrim that is simply better and more powerful than any other attack in the game. You can spam this attack endlessly once you get the timing down, and it is the best and most damaging attack in the game. This means that if you use the other weapons, it is more often than not because you want to do so and not necessarily because you need to use them. You can beat this entire game with just the sword if you really want to. This is something of a problem as it discourages you from getting the most out of this game's combat system. This game chooses to teach you its mechanics in a way that feels disruptive to the overall pacing. It does not feel natural at all. There are 2 times in this game where stone giants will block your way, and they will tell you that they are cursed, and they will send you to various locations to enter the Shadow Realm and deal with demons in them. In each, it gives you a specific challenge that will teach you its various mechanics. The problem with it is that it feels like a tutorial pushed into it that stalls out the pacing of the game. It feels like it stops the game and goes, okay, we're going to put you in this fight just to teach you how to play. There has to be a better and more natural way of teaching you the game's mechanics. There has got to be a way to do this in a way that is not so disruptive to the game. Aside from that, the pacing does feel on point. It gets a lot better once you move past the tutorial section of the game. After that, it is always throwing new weapons and new items at you, as well as a good variety of environments that help it feel fresh and not repetitive from start to finish. For the most part, this game is well paced. It lasts as long as it needs to and does not drag itself out. This game and its gameplay are not perfect at all. There is a dominant strategy in the combat that can result in the player spamming it and not getting the most out of the combat. The pacing is a bit off at the beginning, and the tutorial could be given to you in a better and more natural way, but it does so many different things so well that the positives here far outweigh the negatives. This is one hell of a fun game for the vast majority of its playtime. I enjoy it quite a bit. If you like God of War and Zelda, you probably will too. What about replay value, though? Well, this game does have some. You need to explore to find all the life shards and wrath shards. There are also hidden chests to find that contain pieces of the abyssal armor. This is the best armor in the game, and you really need to take your time searching in every corner to find it. There are multiple difficulty levels to play the game through as well, and achievements to get if you are into that sort of thing. There is plenty of reason to replay through this game. Darksiders does not have an original bone in its body. It is derivative. This cannot be denied, but it does so many things well. The story is good. The world building is excellent. The combat is fun, especially if you use the system to its fullest. The puzzles are great and will make you think. The music and voice acting are both excellent. This is a great game that rises above its derivative combo of God of War and Zelda to become something really cool in its own right. I definitely recommend giving it a try if you like both of those series. It is definitely worth your time. This is where I would usually talk about the various ports of the game. I have said in the past that it will get very expensive very quickly, and that is the case here. It was on the Xbox 360 as well as the PlayStation 3, which you have been looking at this entire time. It was remastered as well, though. You can get the remaster on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, the Nintendo Switch, and the PC. I just do not have the kind of cash required to buy that many versions of a game to compare them. Having said that, the PC version of this game did go on sale on GOG while I was playing through it. I decided to pick it up. The remaster is excellent. All the screen tearing is just gone, and it can run at 60 FPS or higher, and it feels so much better to play at this frame rate. There is a lighting engine, and everything looks polished. The game's wonderful art design really shines through in this version of the game more than it ever did on the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3. I will leave a link in the description below to purchase it if you are interested. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. I know it has been a while since my last in-depth analysis, and I thank you for your patience as I was dealing with severe depression. I hope you all enjoyed this video. This game was a blast to revisit. If you could give this video a like, that would help me out. Comment below, what do you think of Darksiders? Do you love it like I do, or is it boring and derivative in your eyes? Let me know below. Subscribe for future updates from this channel. Ring the bell so that you get notifications because YouTube is dumb. And share this video. That would help me out a lot too. Talk to you later, everybody. Doomdog out.